Good evening, dear friends. I'm Venerable Dhamma here at Dhammadharini Monastery. On behalf of all the monastics here and our fellow monastics at Ayya Bodhi Hermitage, we're happy to have Ayya Sobhana here tonight with us to teach. Ayya has been on retreat for the past 5 months, 4 of them at the Ayya Bodhi Hermitage above the Sonoma coast. This will be her first teaching with us. We're so excited and happy to have her back. We're looking forward to it. Also, dear friends, I will be leading a weekend retreat on practice of the destruction of the taints on May 12th to 14th. So happy to have you back, Ayya. Turning it over to you.
Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namasami. Dear friends, I'm delighted to see you again through this little screen and these little pictures. I can see your name or your face or your logo. I have been in the forest, actually completely silent, except for chanting the blessings once a day for 4 months. So if my voice is kind of funny, it's because it's not used to talking. Let's sit down. Let's sit together for a meditation for a while. So I'll give a brief guided meditation to get us started, and then we can sit together for about 40 minutes altogether. Coming to an upright and balanced posture, adjusting the body to make it as comfortable as possible. Ideally, one can sit for the whole session without having to twist and turn and wiggle around trying to be comfortable. Feeling the physical body, the weight of the body on the cushion. Aware of the posture. Making the decision to shake off all the thinking and excitement of the day, just to be in a receptive mode. And take in a couple of deep breaths. Breathe in long. Pause. Breathe out long. Breathe in long. Pause. Breathe out long. Making a survey of the sensations in the body. It doesn't have to be very methodical. Just see what sensations are noticeable. relaxing into the sensations and feelings. Letting the mind become more still, not jumping around, just resting in the meditation. Aware of the rise and fall of the breath and the feelings in the body. Nothing to do, just watching.
Hello,
If
Ayya.
some kind of perception or some thought comes along, with the utmost kindness, see it for what it is. Have kindness for the thinking, kindness for the wandering mind. And just say, that's enough now. We can come back to the breath, come back to the sensation of the body. If the mind is drowsy, can move the awareness around the body, noticing the sensation, different parts of the body, the belly, the chest, the throat, the nose, the face, the limbs, the hands touching. Just letting awareness wander around the sensations in the body to stay more alert. And if the mind is jumpy, nervous, or wandering, one can take a more specific object, like the sensation on the tip of the nose, with determination to focus awareness there. But if the mind wanders, don't wander from A to B to C to D. Each time the mind moves, come back to the breath. Mind may wander to A, back to the breath. It can wander to B and back to the breath. Wander to C, back to the breath. Even if the mind is jumpy, it can keep coming back again and again. And if the mind is calm and clear, watch the breath without holding on. Just let the mind rest, and the breath comes and goes by itself. What's it like now? Where's the mind? Seeing the state of the mind, seeing how awareness is, seeing how the body feels. Dedicating the merit of this meditation for our welfare and happiness, and for our liberation, insight, and for the realization of Nibbana. I realize this is out of the usual sequence, but I'm going to share the screen now for the brief chanting program that's done at the Wat Buddhanasorn Temple, since I see that the Wat has joined us for tonight. Usually that would come first and meditation second, but we're doing it differently today. So just give me a second to share the screen.
I apologize that we signed on late.
Chanting. There we go. So, share screen. If you can see the words in Pali, you can chant along. Or if you remember the words in Pali, you may chant along. Please direct your awareness to the Buddha image that you have in your home, or else the one that you can see behind me here on the screen. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho Vijja charana sampanno sugatolo kavirum hanumtaro purisa dhammasarati satta deva manusanang buddha bhagavati. Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Samditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanayiko Pachatang Veditambo Vinyuhiti. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samikshi Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidam Chattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pungala Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ahuneyo, Pahuneyo, Dakyuneyo, Anjali Karuneyo, Anumtarang Punya Ketam Lokasati. Then requesting the 5 precepts. Those who are following 8 precepts can just listen. I'm reciting this to lead you in 5 precepts, but I'm not giving up my 227 precepts, my 311 precepts. Mayang Bhante Visung Rakanataya Tisaranena Saha Panchasilani Yachama Dutiyampi Mayang Bhante Visung Rakanataya Tisaranena Saha Panchasilani Yachama Tatiyampi Mayang Bhante Visung Ratkanataya Tisaranena Saha Panchasilani Yaktama. This is requesting the protection of the refuges and the precepts. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata Veramani Sikkapadang Samadhiyami. Adinadana Veramani Sikkapadang Samadhiyami. Kame Sumikkhachara Veramani Sikkapadang Samadhiyami. Musavada Veramani Sikkapadang Samadhiyami. Sura Merayamajapamadatana Veramani Sikkapadang Samadhiyami. We renewed our precept to refrain from killing, from stealing, from sensual misconduct, from false and harmful speech, and from drinks and drugs causing heedlessness. The main teaching of the Buddha. Sabba papa sakaranam kusala supasampada sachitta pariyodapanam etang buddhana sasanam not to do any evil, to do good, cultivate good, to purify the mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. And chanting for gratitude to parents. Ananta guna sampanna janeti janaka ubo mahang mata pitunang va pade vandami sadaram etena sakchivanjena Sara soti bhavantu me. Homage to the parents who gave us life. We appreciate all the comfort, love, and kindness given by those who raised us. By the power of speaking these truths, may happiness be mine. Honoring the teacher. Pacharacharya hanti Gunataranusasaka Panyavundikarete Dinnovade Namamiham Hetena Satchavajena Hotume Kaya Mangalam. Homage to all the great teachers who gave us art and goodness, teachers who gave us wisdom, who teach us that evil is bad and that goodness is not a crime. By the power of speaking these truths, may victory blessings be mine. Finally, radiating loving kindness. Just the English and Pali, we don't have to recite in the Thai language. Sambe satta sukhita huntu. May all living beings be happy. Avira huntu. May all living beings free from animosity. Hambya panja huntu. May all living beings be free from oppression. Anigha huntu. May all living beings be free from trouble. Sukhiyatanam pariharantu. May all living beings look after themselves with ease. So, having joined our voices together with chanting, I'll talk for a few minutes about the Dhamma. If you have a comment or a question, you're welcome to type it into the chat if you're close to a computer, or else you can put your hand up, and when I come to a pause, I may pause for a few minutes to take questions and have some discussion, and then present a little bit more.
Yes, it might be difficult for us to put questions in the chat from here. So if there are people have questions or comments, you guys can just raise your hand, and can I share that with you, Ayya?
Right. If you have a question, if Shari sees that somebody has a question, she may raise her hand, and then I'll pause and answer the question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've got a group of people there, and
I do. We have quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4. We had 5. Somebody just walked out.
5 people there. Great. And we have Maureen, Seminary Satima, Ruanti, Ananaya, Richard. I don't know if Didi's in the room with you. I can't see. Ren, Maitri, Karen, Julie, Misha, and Guy, Tangerine. So welcome everybody, and thank you so much for coming. So while I was in the forest, for a large part of the time, I didn't have access to the internet, and for a part of the time, my computer was not strong enough to let me be reading things in the computer for large parts of the day. And also, I did have a few Dhamma books, but I didn't find I had the desire to spend very many minutes reading Dhamma books. So it was quite a unique and unusual experience just to be sitting in a cabin alone with many hours where there was the opportunity for formal meditation or for thinking. And what came to me very clearly, which perhaps is something that I knew a long time ago and had forgotten, is that the meditation itself is so transforming, but you can't necessarily see the transformation while it's happening, and yet the mind is definitely being transformed. One of the things that I'm interested in is considering the Dhamma that comes down to us from the early Buddhist texts in the Pali Canon, and seeing how it compares with the other schools of thought that were going on at the time, and how it compares with our way of thinking that we have today. I'll just give you a small example of it. We very often do a particular reflection about the self, about not self. This is a teaching the Buddha gave. He said, consider the body. Is the body impermanent or permanent? I say it's impermanent, Venerable Sir. And then, is the body satisfactory or not satisfactory? And, or is it suffering or not suffering? And the answer is it's suffering. Even if the body feels pleasant for a minute, the pleasure doesn't last. And if we live long enough, we get a chance to experience a lot of pain that goes on for a long time. Not to mention the agony of being young, the agony of childhood, the agony of being a teenager or being a young adult. So it contains suffering. It has that dukkha. And then the Buddha says, is something which is impermanent and has the nature of suffering or being unsatisfactory, is that worth calling that myself? And the answer is no, Venerable Sir, it's not a self. So this is based on making a comparison with what other recluses and mendicant meditators thought at the time. They experienced something in their meditation which was seem to be beyond time, something that's not changing, something that's fantastically blissful, something that's otherworldly, something that's as big as the universe, something that's bright and shining, something truly amazing. The people had the experience of in their meditation, and they wanted to know, what's this? And the answer that some of the meditators gave is that you have within yourself, within you, you have a true self. You have it's sort of mysterious. It's sort of beyond language how you could access this. But somehow, if you look within, you can find this pure, beautiful, blissful, unchanging something within you. And they call this your true self, the true self. And in the early Upanishads, they made a correspondence between the Brahman, which is the highest manifestation of the divine, and the true self, that those two things are connected. So you can realize your connection with the divine if you can realize the true self within. And so what the Buddha said is actually, he said, I looked within and I found that what we can experience with this body, we can experience what's available through us through the senses, including the 5 physical senses and the mind. We can experience this body, feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, or this is fabricated ideas and intentions. And we can experience consciousness itself, which is this knowing quality. And all of these things are actually only accessible to us because they're coming to us through the senses, including the 5 physical senses and the mind. There is not some other mysterious something that can be known that's not through the 5 senses. And he said that looking for something that's a self is just actually leads to perpetuating suffering. So I know that, especially when I look back, this is why during my retreat I was kind of really doing some like basic rethinking. There are these things that are like in the catechism. We've studied them and recited them so many thousands of times, and we've accepted them as being the true Dhamma, truly the Buddhist teachings. But I was kind of like coming from scratch and say, is this really true? Is it really true that there's no self? What does that mean anyway? And if there's no self, why is it that 99% of the people in the world think that there's a self outside of the Dhamma? And so why is it so natural and so easy and sort of like logical to make this mistake about self and, you know, sort of this other system? So what I found is, number one, in I'll take this from a modern perspective, a modern philosophy or psychology perspective. We always have experiences that are happening to us in relationship to the senses. when the brain cognizes some object that's being perceived through the senses, we can, cognize the color, the shape, the size, the edges, and somehow the brain puts that together into a three-dimensional object. And I'm able to, the brain is able to cognize that the object is the same object. So there's a student, Annie is here in the room here, she's right in front of me. And whether she's in the meditation hall and the light is sort of dim, and she's about 8 feet away from me. And then earlier on, yesterday, I was riding in a car with Annie, and it was in bright sunlight, and she was only 3 feet away from me. But it was very easy. I could tell that it was the same person, regardless of the distance, whether they're moving or staying still, whether the light is like a bright light or a yellow light or a red light or whatever kind of shade of the light that's happening. There are all many different appearances connected with a particular kind of object, but our mind creates this kind of stability in the objects. And it's because of that stability in the objects that actually philosophers in the olden days got the idea that there is a perfect, eternal, permanent ideal of the different objects in the world. So there's an ideal concept of the chair, which exists in the ether or something. And then, with our senses, we can have experiences with many different actual chairs that more or less approximate what this ideal is. So it's because of something that the brain does that we think that there's a much greater stability than there is, and we don't see the impermanence that easily. And then the other thing that's happening is, this from philosophy perspective, but we can see it in the ancient thinking as well. When you cognize an object, you create a subject. So the subject is from what you're able to see depends on where you're sitting. So you sort of know directly that you're the subject that's experiencing the object. Regarding a visual object, I'll help you to see how this is, okay? Put your two fingers out in front of you and notice the visual aspect of your two fingers, and then move them towards you and keep watching them, keep watching them, keep watching them until they're going to go be by the side of your head. Keep watching them, keep watching them, keep watching them. And then eventually you can't see the fingers anymore because they've gone beyond your peripheral vision. But you can tell that your head is in between. Your head is like the perspective that was looking at the two fingers. And so that's something, it's a very simple-minded way of showing how, in nature, we do constantly create a self. It's the self is the one who's got the agency, who's doing things, the self who's making decisions, and the self who's having all of these different experiences. And we do just the way the brain fabricates a kind of apparent permanence with all those objects. The brain fabricates a kind of a permanence with the subjectivity of the subject. So we know that, even though we know that we've changed, we do still imagine that when we were a child or a young person or whatever age we are now, that it was the same person, the same biography that was happening to the same person. Now, people, religious people are worried about suffering. And one of the schools of thought in the Buddhist time, that would be the, I think it's the Ajitakas, otherwise they felt that our mundane, ordinary, materialistic self is the one who's doing good and bad deeds and who is becoming colored by the merit or the demerit or the karma of our good and bad deeds, and which is going to then receive the consequences. And because of having been reborn countless times and having had so many experiences in different life forms, not to mention in the current life that we have now, when we were younger, we didn't know so much. We made so many mistakes. We did so many bad things. And so this mundane, this worldly self is tainted, dirty, because of the evil that was done. But there's this other self, this spiritual, this mysterious spiritual self that we have within, which is not touched by the karma that we do, which is eternal and pure. And that's our salvation. Okay, so that was the answer that they were coming to. There's several different sort of like variations on the theme. Some felt that this process of purification was happening by a natural evolution that wasn't really depending on our will or our decisions. It was just something that we do a natural migration on a great cycle of time. Some felt that we are not able to purify our accumulated bad karma, but it will gradually take care of itself. But at least we can avoid doing any additional bad karma. So even people who had that belief still would try to be extremely good, try not to do any bad karma, because they don't want to make any more, and they want to allow nature to gradually wash away the evil of the past. And there are different ideas like that. So in Buddhism, there's this fantastic insight that whole idea about this self, which has gotten dirty, is just the wrong track. When we're looking in that way, we won't find it. But it so happens that a meditator who's a Buddhist can have those very similar experiences, which are very otherworldly, extremely blissful, seeming to be extremely like timeless and stable, and seeming to be really beyond all of the afflictions and distractions and hindrances and all of the other things that we struggle with in our everyday life. It's just that the Buddha pointed out these kind of deep meditations as being something that's actually can be extremely useful and beneficial in seeing that we don't need to cling to the ordinary mundane things. But then after that, we have to also not cling to that meditation.
Ask a question at this time?
Oh, that's a good idea. Yes.
Carl?
I've had the fortunate experience of having that, exactly what you spoke about, which is to have an expansive experience of just beauty and bliss, and just, it was absolutely amazing. But I haven't had that as much lately. I have a lot of thoughts going on, and I was wondering, is that just as productive as the other one, the meditation? I mean, the one that's so great versus the one with all the thoughts, because I never regret sitting, even if I have those thoughts. Never regret it. And so I'm wondering which one is more productive, if there is.
Okay, it's a great deal of benefit can happen from the difficult meditations where we're struggling with thoughts, or having thoughts and emotions and different things coming along that are not what's supposed to be the purpose of meditation. Even by means of actually like reflecting about what we're experiencing and disidentifying with the feelings and thoughts that come along, so that one can just look at the process and see the true nature of that process, seeing that that process itself is impermanent. It's not me, not mine. It's just something that's arising from causes and conditions. And also looking at the causation in those distracted states, or those hindrances, whatever it is. One can see that state as either skillful or not skillful. And you can see, like, what are the underlying conditions, or what's the causation in the sense of that. So like this way of having a lot of thoughts during meditation, where is it coming from? And also, what does it lead to? And then, so if we see that it's coming from, say, being emotionally or mentally aroused in some kind of way before sitting down for meditation, then we could think about changing our lifestyle to calm ourselves down or something, or learning how to get rid of obsessive thoughts, something like that. And also, if you see what it's leading to, if you see that it just goes on and on and on, and the more you buy into thinking, if you choose, I love this thinking, I'm just going to do this for pleasure or because I think it's beneficial, then you just get more and more thinking. But if you see that the limit or the danger in thinking, then the mind becomes willing to let it go, becomes willing to put it down. And so that's all the kind of some of the ways that you can get a lot of gain and benefit from meditation, which is full of hindrances or thinking. Concentration, meaning where at least the hindrances can be suppressed, and one can experience what's referred to as the first jhana, or beyond that, other states of the four jhanas of concentrated meditation, or the immaterial states, or the states that are like even beyond perception, even beyond having any awareness at all of the physical contact. All of those states of deeper meditation are necessary. As I understand the teaching of the Buddha, if you want to really realize the way things truly are and how the Four Noble Truths work, being able to go into those states and there's a kind of transformation within those states that the ordinary busy worldly way of thinking, you can see that that's not necessary. You don't have to be trapped there because there's something else completely different. And then beyond that, if you see that that meditation state is also impermanent, not me, not mine, not myself, and that actually it becomes, it's a benefit at first, and then if you cling to it, it's a danger. And then if you stop, if you learn how to not cling to that state, then you really have the potential to wake up. So you do need to have both, and somebody who is not lucky enough to have had any of those blissful states of meditation, if you can take retreats or get a teacher or make some change in your practice so that you're able to get those states, that's what the Buddha recommends.
Question about that.
Go ahead.
You may have answered it already, but I just need some clarification. So when you're in deep meditation, for someone like me, that usually requires a long period of retreat, at least a week, for me to get into that frame of mind. And then when I come back, I can't function in that deep state of meditation in the daily life. And so could you clarify a little bit more what value that deeper state is? It sounded like you were saying that it shows us how all of the mundane aspects of daily life are not the true reality. Is that kind of what you were saying? Or what other value is it to go into deep states of meditation as a lay person?
Well, in order to be liberated, we have to find out how to let go. We have to let go. We have to stop clinging. And then if you've never experienced being free from like and dislike, greed and hatred, and the constant flow of thinking and fabricating, you might think this is all there is in the world, that there's nothing else. And you can't give it up because you don't think there's anything else. So then, if you have an experience where, especially where liking and disliking and greed and hatred has taken a rest, temporarily gone to sleep, and you experience the state of being away from the hindrances for a while, then you come back into your life. And like you have to, when you're in life, you have to make plans, you have to make decisions, you have to cope with people, you have to be in the presence of other people with their emotions. And so naturally, you can see the stirring up of all of the same, like the normal process of life. But while that's happening, you say, well, actually, this is optional. I don't have to hold on to any of it. Even while I'm in it, I can still say that it's optional. I see a lot of hands up, so let me take some other questions and then I'll come back, Shari, if there's more questions from the room there.
Thank you.
Richard.
Thank you. Why don't you take Ren's question first?
Okay.
Mine might be a little.
Very good. Ren, what's your question? You have to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Right. Sorry for the delay. Welcome back. It's good to see you. I have so many questions, but I think I'll just focus on one thing. I was listening. I want to make sure that I truly understood what you said earlier. which is going within to find your true self. And I seem to gather that finding that process is through meditation. So the meditation is what I'm familiar with is, getting to a state of no thoughts, basically, just moment by moment being aware, moment by moment. So what I'm trying to, and I also heard you say something about 5 senses, that we are, because of who we are, we cannot experience anything beyond the 5 senses. So I'm trying to piece all that together.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
5 senses plus the mind. So that's 6 senses. Okay.
Okay, the 6 senses. So what I'm piecing out together is that to find true self, we meditate and experience it through 6 senses. Am I correct so far?
No, thank you for helping me to clarify. The other schools were saying you got to look within and find your true self. And actually, the Buddha was saying true self is beside the point. You just got to look at what's the real nature of reality. So when we say what appears to be the true self, in Buddhism, we sort of like break it up and say, well, there's these various processes that are going on that all sort of like combine together, and they seem to make a self, but really it's sort of the self thing is sort of like a mirage. And so then we don't have to hold on to it. We know how to let go of it when we see that it's a mirage.
And it's a mirage because, unlike materialist frame of mind, we're not really material. It's consciousness. I don't know. It's a collective putting together of persistent images, or of things around us.
The brain fabricates, we say, a movie, which is actually, I could say, it's the greatest story ever told. It's the story of me. And for each individual, the story of me is the most important and most interesting story in the whole world. So then it is something, it's a natural something that the mind creates. But what the Buddha is saying is that it's just a creation, like a chair or a movie. And if you see that it's just a creation, then you can stop trying to hold on to it. And when you stop holding on to it, then different kind of experiences come up, a completely different way of experiencing can open up for you, and one can experience liberation.
I think what's most fascinating to me is that following that concept, it's really amazing that if let's just say the moon, right? So we're all looking at the moon, the same moon. So it seems like that's a mirage, but it's a collective mirage. And it appears on exact same spot, where an astronomer could measure and say, that's the moon at its whatever, coordinate. It is appearing as that the astronomer would know where the moon would be. But for me personally, I am not an astronomer. I have no idea where the moon should be. But however, when I look at it, it's exactly where you will see it and where other people are seeing it. It's per measured. I can't get my mind around that. I think it's, I don't know. It blows my mind.
This kind of a collective reality is also an aspect of the way that we experience a self. Like, even they say that like a little baby, when it's first a newborn, doesn't have much of an idea like where the boundary is between their little baby body and the whole great world. It's all, I don't know, just like a blur or something. But then when the parent is holding the baby and looking at the baby and say, ba, 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 baby, baby, and you know, seeing the baby and they can see the eyes and so forth. And like that's a social process, is how the baby or child starts to know that they're an individual. Who I am, when I was younger, I was the fourth out of 5 children in a family that had 2 parents and 4 grandparents. And I was a sister, a daughter, and a grandchild. And it was quite like shocking when my relatives started to die. Then it was like a part of myself had been torn away. Because I didn't think when I was young and naive. I thought that who I am, who myself is like this individual who's within this spectrum of relationships. And it's exactly true what you say about the moon. You know, when the moon is in the exact moment of the peak of the full moon, that moon is the full moon throughout the entire world, every place on the globe. If they can see the moon, it's perfectly full at the same particular moment. And so then there is something that, like all those brains cognizing a full moon, you know, together, it could be that there's some type of telepathy there, or some kind of a shared experience. But all of those things, like what the Buddha is telling you is, don't cling to it. And this earth and this moon are also impermanent. Not to mention you and your body are also impermanent. So if you can find out how to go beyond clinging, then you'll be free.
Thank you, Ayya.
Yeah. Richard?
Yes, thank you, Ayya. What I'm going to say might sound controversial, and I don't want people to read too much into it, but I believe that it's food for thought. And Bhikkhu Bodhi gave a lecture series on the Majjhima Nikaya about 20 years ago. It's over 150 lectures. I don't know if anyone here has had the chance to listen to them. I personally have listened to them probably about 20 times through. I used to every day listen for an hour or two every single day, day in and day out, year after year. And one thing came up in one of those discussions was someone asked him a question about no self. And Bhikkhu Bodhi said, and you know, you can take him as an authority or not, but I think he does know the Pali Canon, you know, pretty thoroughly based on his background. You know, he's the preeminent, you know, in terms of quantity, you might say, translator in the world, although there may be a few who are catching up to him now. He said that in the suttas, Buddha never says no self. He says only non-self. And he points out what's non-self. The 5 khandhas are non-self, right? The senses are non-self, things of that nature. You know, mana, the mind of conceit, the mind that comes up with the identification of, you know, this I am, this is mine, this is myself, like that. You know, that's non-self. He says chitta, states of mind, happy mind, sad mind, concentrated mind, unconcentrated mind, liberated mind, unliberated mind. He says states of chitta are non-self, but he never says Chaito is non-self. And I've checked this very thoroughly. I've literally gone through the entire 4 Nikayas, searching for everywhere where the word mind appears, because those three terms sometimes are generally translated as mind, but they really mean something different. And the liberation, the initial first phase of liberation is called Ceto Vimukti. That Ceta, that mind, becomes liberated, and it becomes liberated by attaining the fifth formless state, okay? Beyond what I like to call sense perception. And then through that experience, if it can settle down, samatha means to like settle a case, a legal case. If it can settle down sankara, there, which it can only do by overcoming incomplete knowledge, avidya, which is usually translated as ignorance. So it stops the process of sankara. Then then the mind attains liberation by wisdom, which I prefer to translate it as liberation by understanding. And if you look up the word wisdom in the dictionary, one of the synonyms is understanding. So by this total understanding that sankara, this imaginary process of, oh, I should be this or do this or enjoy this or take this life or birth in this realm or whatever, by eradicating all those thoughts from your mind, seeing through them, right? Because they're all non-self, they're all experiences of non-self. Then one attains vijnana, right? One attains complete knowledge. Okay. So I know this is controversial, and Bhikkhu Bodhi himself mentioned when he brought this up in the lecture series that he's seen arguments between monastics, monks, using the most terrible language with each other, where one is claiming, no, there is a self, and the other one's claiming, no, there's no self, right? But he says that actually in the Pali, anatta means non-self or not self, not no self. That if you're talking about no self, it would be more like na. Na means like no, okay? It'd be like na something atta, right? But he says that doesn't exist in the Pali. And so anyways, I'm not saying anyone has to accept what I'm saying right now, or it's just food for thought. Maybe you want to look, closely at it yourself and see, like what I'm saying, that there's no mention ever of Ceto. Buddha never mentions Ceto or Ceta as non-self anywhere in the Pali Canon, and that goes right along with his explanation of Ceto Vimukti, liberation of mind, right? And that's why he says when it's liberated, one knows it is liberated, right? But what is that it? Ceto Vimukti, the mind, the actual mind is liberated, not temporary states of mind, and not the false identification of mana. With this I am, this is mine, this is myself. Those things are all eradicated in the process. The false identification with other things, externals. In one sutra, he talks about that no matter what the philosophy is that the Brahmanas and Shramanas come up with, that's not the full understanding of the Dharma. He says it's merely being attached to, like by a cord, like a dog, you might say, might be attached to a post, and that post is the five khandhas. So they're merely circling around somehow from some direction, trying to see in the five khandhas, right, that a self, but the five khandhas are just external objects, to the mind, and it's just false identification that identifies you with your body and things like that. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Anyone's free to disagree with me, whatever you want to say. But I think it's very important in trying to understand the Buddhist teaching to be careful about, I think it's other philosophies that slowly got absorbed into Buddhism that made certain ideas become like a part of what we see now as the doctrine. And if you can't see it in the sutta, I don't believe it should be part of the doctrine, right? So anyways, that's just the point I wanted to make. Anyway, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Richard. You are, because of being well educated with the suttas, I do enjoy your comments. This Chaita Vimutti, Panya Vimutti is sort of a two-part epithet or description that's sometimes given for enlightenment. And one thing that I have read is that this division actually came about after the Buddha's lifetime because of a debate between monks, that some monks were practicing the immaterial meditations, and they were associating their meditative accomplishments with Chaita Vimutti, this liberation of mind. And then the Panya Vimutti, this because of the insight of being able to see impermanent suffering and non-self, seeing the characteristics or seeing reality as it is. And so there came to be there's sort of like this competition in the Sangha that some arahants are better than others because some arahants were liberated in one way and some arahants were liberated in two ways, by having both meditation and insight, whereas some of them just had the dry insight only without the meditative accomplishments. It's a really interesting set of teachings that can be kind of confusing about these different liberations. There are other liberations like the signless liberation and so forth, which are related to different themes of contemplation, themes of meditation that can be developed and can be confused with enlightenment. But here again, it is controversial. I know that there are very authoritative bhikkhu teachers who definitely say that those deep liberations are deep meditation states. They're useful, but it's just a meditation state, and you have to, by not clinging to that, is the way to liberation. If you cling to these meditative experiences, then you can fall into the wrong track. But it's not saying that meditation is dangerous or you should be careful or don't meditate too much or anything of that nature. Those meditative states were praised. I do take your point about non-self rather than saying there is no self. The Buddha was very skillful in weaving around that argument, saying there is a self or there is not a self. And he just said that anything, what you can look at, that is anatta, it's not self. It is the body is not self, and form, feeling, perception, and consciousness, especially the consciousness. Consciousness is what is arising in conjunction with the sense experiences, which is that knowing factor. This is why I say that everything we experience depends on having the sense faculties and being able to know the experiences as they arise in that way, and the vijnana that arises with the awareness or with the contact, or that to cognize an experience that came along. But it is then also true that consciousness or vijnana has the aspect of leaning towards the next thing. leading towards the next life. So they're in the Anenjasapaya Sutta, 105 in the Middle Length Discourses. They talk about the imperturbable states. That's referring to some of those different liberations. And it says that if you develop this meditation, then because the consciousness is going in that direction, then you would be reborn into this immaterial realm in the Buddhist cosmology that corresponds to that meditation state. And then at the end of that sutta, like the culmination is that when you're not clinging to anything, then you don't have a consciousness which is inclining towards some rebirth in some realm or another because of going in a particular direction. I'm going to call on Julie.
Thank you. Just really quickly, only if it's simple, because I know it's late, but I just wanted to confirm that when you're talking about that there's, the non-self, we're not saying that there's not a moon, right? What you just said about, having to depend on the sense experience as part of this whole connection thing. So I just wanted to, it seemed like what you were saying is the self is not discrete and it's not continuous and it's not some core thing that's going to last forever, right? As opposed to it is true that there are material stuff exists and we are a culmination or proximity of that stuff that comes and goes. Is that more like what you're saying? Like like it's not all an illusion, right?
And the avoided getting
Sorry, you're breaking up for me.
the end of my internet stable.
Sorry, Ayya, are you there?
It appears that the connection has been either it's really low or she might have to come back on.
Yes.
I hate to ask you to do this, but you might turn your camera off and that might improve the transmission so we could at least hear it.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Let us pay respects to the Triple Gem and bring this delightful conversation to a close. I thank everybody for your great questions.
Thank you for sharing, Ayya.
Araham Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamman Namasami Supartipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami